Let us continue with democracy in education. This is week 4, section 3. We have already discussed concept of democracy, wherein we discuss the historical concept of democracy, where we talked about how democracy started in Athens. And then we moved on to the modern concept of democracy, where we discuss democracy is of the people, by the people, for the people. And then we discuss principles of democracy. Now let us move on to democracy in education. The concept of democracy, as we have discussed before, shows that it is based on certain assumptions which are basic to it and that make it most worthwhile for the growth of both the individual and the society. These basic faiths or tenets, equality and freedom, are the basis not only of the socio-political system and structure but also lie at the root of our education and life. So when we talk about democracy, we are talking about the concept of equality and freedom. We are talking about the principle of equality and freedom. Democracy, the very beauty of democracy is giving equality to all and freedom. So these are very important basic tenets or faiths of democracy. Education should aim at producing a society characterized by equality or opportunities to all without any regard to sex, color, race or religion. It is perhaps for this unbounded faith in equality and freedom that the framers of the Indian Constitution should be provided in the preamble that all men, irrespective of caste and creed, color, sex or region or religion, would be treated equal in the eyes of law. The fundamental rights provided in the Constitution are rooted in equality of men. In all speculations and writings on education or on democracy, the word equality is juxtaposed with freedom, which means that when equality is there in the society without any discrimination on the basis of caste, color, sex, region or religion, then you have freedom as well. The freedom to practice your own religion, the freedom to approach the court of law if you feel there is any discrimination. So it means that everyone is equal before the law irrespective of their caste, color, creed, religion. So now let us talk about freedom in education. Freedom is a concept which in a political, social or even personal life is the most sought after goal of mankind. But the concept is even more complex than the concept of equality. The root idea behind freedom is not to be impeded or constrained by either physical force or by passing laws, which again amounts to indirect use of force. So when we talk about freedom in education, when we talk about democracy in education, it means that we are not impeded, we are not constrained, there are no obstacles by either physical force or by laws which restrict our movement, our freedom of choice. So it means that freedom and education means that they would not be impeded, there will be no obstacles with respect to physical force or laws which force a citizen to do what he or she does not want to do. Education is a means of acquiring the ability without which freedom is not worthy. In fact, education or knowledge does not increase or limits one's freedom. It only increases the ability to use it. So let me elaborate a little bit. When we talk about education or knowledge, how is it related to freedom? When we are educated, when we are aware, when we increase our knowledge, when we have acquired knowledge, then it does not limit one's freedom, but it also increases the ability to use it, which means that when you have knowledge, when you are aware of your rights, when you are aware of fundamental rights, you know that there are certain rights which can be used, and because you gain so much knowledge regarding these rights, you are able to use it. You are aware of what your rights are and you are able to use it. Freedom, instead of depending on education, rests on laws, regulations on social decision. It is a social or a political good, which simply means that when we talk about freedom, freedom does not mean that because we are in a democratic country, we follow the principles of democracy. It does not mean that you are free to do what you want. Yes, you have freedom to practice your religion. You have freedom to approach the court when you feel that there are certain discrimination done against you. You have freedom to move in any part of the country if you are a citizen of India. However, when we talk about freedom, it does not mean that you go about doing anything what you like. There are certain laws, regulations, social norms which is for the good of all. You cannot misuse the freedoms. Let me just give you a simple example. You have the freedom to walk on the pavement, but you should not be an obstacle for someone who's working on the pavement. You cannot stop a person from walking in the pavement by taking the whole space of walking in the pavement. So you have the freedom to walk on a pavement, but then you do not restrict the movement of others on the pavement. So you having freedom should not impede the others to use their freedom. Freedom is used for the social and political good of all. Actions are liable to be called good or bad only insofar as they are done freely, autonomously, of one's own free will. In the context of education too, much premium has been placed on freedom. It is this freedom alone which enables the child to develop into an independent and self-regulating person. So when we talk about education leads to what is called freedom. Because you have education, because you are informed of your rights, because of education you are able to know what your rights are. You know what are the various fundamental rights which you have as a citizen of the country. So this education leads to freedom, and because of this freedom it enables the child to develop into an independent and self-regulating person. Because of education, because education gives the person certain freedom to choose, freedom of opportunities and so on, it enables the child to develop into an independent and self-regulating person. Most people, including teachers and parents, hold that too much of freedom is not altogether desirable. Freedom may be abused by children and even by adults. Freedom may be of different kinds, like freedom from restraints that check our personality from growing to its full potential, and freedom to do, signifying what serves best the individual or social interest. Some freedoms are rated high on the scale of preference, others are devalued and hence discouraged by the society as a whole. Like I said, freedom is very good in terms of you do not restrain, you do not constrain the other person to use his or her freedom. Because when you have too much of freedom, it may be abused by children, even by adults. So when you have freedom, you should know to what extent you can use this freedom, to what extent you should use this freedom. Because too much of freedom, free for all, in a way that is freedom, too much of freedom is not altogether desirable. And when we talk about freedom, there are different kinds of freedom. Freedom to do what you want, but not at the expense of the others. You also should utilize your freedom, use of freedom, but also it should be for your best interest and also for the best interest of the society. And also freedom means that you are able to grow as a person, you are able to become a better citizen of the country. So there are certain freedom that makes you fulfill your potential. Some of the freedoms, like I said before, are valued higher. They are more preferred, and there are other freedoms which are not very high on the preference scale. What are these freedom that are valued and hence preferred? These are freedom to live where we please, freedom to vote, to choose our friends, to express our ideas, to accept a particular faith or religion, and so on. These are the freedom, these are the rights which makes our country a democratic country, one of the largest democracy in the country. Our country, India, which has provided so much of freedom, which are valued and which are so much high on the preference scale. That is the freedom to live where we please, the freedom to move around in the country, the freedom to vote, that is to elect our representatives, the freedom to choose our friends, the freedom to express our ideas, the freedom to accept a particular faith or religion, and so on. So these are the freedoms and the rights which are valued. And there are other freedoms which are discouraged and are not valued as so much as the ones I have just talked about. So these are freedom which is discouraged, that is the freedom to steal, the freedom to defraud, or the freedom to fool others, to defraud others, and so on. So when we talk about freedom, there are freedom and rights which are valued, and there are some freedoms which are devalued and are not much preferred. One of the most important member of the society are the teachers. As I have explained the role of teachers and parents in the first week, teachers and parents are very important. And the teacher, when we talk about democracy in education, the teacher, for example, must be free to carry out her task, to organize her work as he or she deems fit, to adopt methods of teaching per the requirement of pupils. So when we talk about the role of teachers, when we talk about the role of parents, now let us here talk about the role of teacher. Teachers are very important. They play a central role in the development of a child's personality, because more than 10 years of their life, of a child's life, is spent in an educational institution, the school. So the teacher must have the freedom to carry out his or her task and also adopt methods to teach children according to the requirement of the students. So there may be some methods which are maybe unconventional. There might be certain methods which the teacher would like to apply to the students, because she or he feels that if these methods are applied for teaching the students will be able to learn more. So freedom should be given to the teachers for carrying out his or her task, and adopt methods wherein the teacher feels it is a method which would enhance the personality, the knowledge of the student, the pupils. Similarly, there are certain freedoms necessary for the pupils to exercise. The pupils must be free to participate in the process of learning and must be free to use the facilities available in the school to the benefit of learning. So this is very important. Schools have certain infrastructure like the library, like the playground, and so on. So students of the school should be able to use these facilities, this infrastructure, to enhance their knowledge and also for the growth of their personality. And also students should be free to participate in the process of learning. For example, when a teacher teaches in the class, the teacher should involve the student in the learning process. The teacher should encourage the students to participate. The teacher should make it an interactive session, because through this interactive session, the students will be able to participate more in the process of learning, and he or she will enjoy the class. When it is just the teacher teaching, it becomes very monotonous. Yes, the job of the teacher is to teach, but then the teacher can make the class interactive, and also encourage the students to participate in the process of learning, which will make the learning more enjoyable. However, with respect to freedom, that is freedom of children to participate in the process of learning, there are certain freedoms which the teacher would like to discourage in children. That is the freedom to be disorderly, to be inattentive in the class, because if these freedoms are allowed, the teacher shall not be able to educate them, and his or her effectiveness as a teacher would be reduced. So, to have the best interest of students, there are certain freedom which the teacher should discourage. Which are this freedom that the teacher should discourage? These are the freedom to be disorderly, that is, you should be orderly in the class, you should be attentive in the class, there should be discipline maintained. It cannot be a class where you give full freedom, where the students will be talking, the student will be discussing amongst themselves, the student will be in a disorderly manner. This should not be allowed, because when we talk about freedom, there are certain freedoms which should be restricted, should be restrained. That is, where in a class, freedom to be disorderly, to be attentive in the class should be discouraged. There are certain freedoms which are sometimes allowed by the teachers and sometimes not. So I have just talked about certain freedom in the class where the teacher should not allow the students, because if a teacher has to focusing on the children means enhancing the knowledge of the student and also to develop the personality of the student, then the teacher needs a class which is orderly, which is attentive. So too much of freedom should be restrained. Which means that the students should maintain discipline in the class, but at the same time the students should also participate in the process of learning, and the teacher should make it interactive so that the students would enjoy the teaching, and also the student would also learn more. What are these freedoms which the teacher should allow? The freedom is to move about, to work with other children, to choose one's work or one way of working. On the part of teachers, therefore, some freedoms are essentially to be allowed and others which are essentially to be discouraged, like I discussed before. And what are the freedom that the teacher should allow the students? That is, the freedom to work with other children, the freedom to choose one way of working. That is, you cannot force students to work in a certain way which you feel that the student should work. What I mean is, you cannot enforce just one method of working for the student. That is, a teacher should encourage students to have their own way of working. For example, a student may like to work in a peaceful environment, would like to work maybe in front of the computer. A student may like to work on the dining table. A student may like to work when he is listening to music, and so on. So though there are certain restrictions which has to be followed, but the teacher should also allow children to choose their own way of work, because most of the children have different methods to their own way of working, to choosing their own work. However, even if you allow these freedom, different ways of working, what has to be emphasized is that the student complete his work or her work in time, and however, whichever method that the student is choosing to work, there should not be any distraction. It should not be served as a distraction for the student. The student should be able to complete his or her work and also should be able to gain from his or her way of working. Freedom in the context of education, therefore, serves as a means and not as the end. If granting of freedom results in increased pupils' performance, it is foolish not to grant it. If given freedom leads to noise, disruption, indiscipline, etc., then it is quite the reason to discourage it. And what's true of pupils' freedom is equally true of that of teachers also. A teacher must have freedom in order to teach, but her freedom in respect of the methods or contents of curriculum is justified to the extent that such freedom serves as the end of education. Give freedom to the student to work according to his or her own way, but not too much freedom so that the child is not distracted, complete his or her work in time. At the same time, the teacher the freedom to use his or her way of method, but also the contents of the curriculum should be justified. The subject that the teacher is teaching should not go beyond a curriculum, but it should contain it should have the curriculum should be justified, and that for this a teacher should have the freedom to teach his or her ways of method, but the methods or contents of curriculum should be justified to the extent that such freedom serve as the end of education. So in week 4 section 3 today, we have discussed what is democracy in education. We have talked about how democracy is important in education. Democracy, in other words, freedom in education is important, because when we talk about freedom in education, it means that you are not restrained, you are not constrained, you are able to enhance your personality, increase your knowledge, and also the ability to use this freedom for a better purpose, for the good of the society. So with this, we have completed week 4 section 3, wherein in all this section I have discussed concept of democracy, I have discussed principles of democracy, and I have discussed democracy in education. So we have completed week 4. Thank you so much.